All right. Well, welcome to the Qredible live broadcast on this nice Friday. We're excited to have Len May back. If you remember, late last year we had Len on. He is an incredible guy, and we're excited to have an awesome conversation today. So I'm just going to give a little quick intro, Len, and then we'll dive into the topics today. So Len May is a certified medical cannabis specialist. He has 25 years of cannabis-related experience. He was the president of the Cannabis Action Network and a lifetime board member of the California Cannabis Association, as well as the Association of Cannabis Specialists. So currently, Len May is the CEO and co-founder of EndoCanna Health, a bioscience technology company, and the parent company of EndoDNA. So lots of awesome background. We're stoked to have you back.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Welcome back, Len. Good to have you back. I guess it was middle of December we had you on before. You were traveling on the road, so great to have you back on the show.
Yeah, thank you. I was at the A4M conference in Vegas for a longevity conference, and I recall my Wi-Fi was not the best in the hotel. So this time we'll try to do better. I'll repeat myself a couple more times from last time.
There you go. Well, always great to have you on.
Thank you.
Well, let's just start with a little bit of a brief, kind of recap, even maybe what you've been up to since, December, how EndoDNA is doing, how EndoCanna is doing, and just kind of the general status of things for you.
Yeah, it's interesting because right at the end of the year, I was trying to make a decision in the planning for 2024. So I ended up calling my my channel partners, my resellers, and asking what's working, what's not working. And there was a lot of great stuff that was working, but one of the things, common theme, was that it seemed like we were competing with our resellers. I'm like, how so? Well, you can go to EndoDNA and you can buy our test directly, or you can go to our resellers and buy it there as well. So they're saying, well, we're spending a lot of money on marketing, trying to differentiate ourselves from you. So I went back to our team and said, we're getting out of the DTC space, direct-to-consumer space, and we're going to focus strictly on B2B. And what we're going to do is we're going to empower our partners to be able to help them grow their business, which helps us grow our business. So if it's a consumer, we're going to send them to one of our partners, geofence, depending where they reside, instead of us fulfilling that. And we're doing some of the fulfillment for legacy, but we'll be making that shift. So I had a lot of pushback. Well, we're making money from this, and we're generating revenue, and this is ongoing revenue, and I understand that. However, there is a way to be able to generate your revenue much bigger than selling one test, than selling 500 tests to a partner and then helping that partner grow. So we decided that we're shifting our business that way, and we're going to be doing 3 different offerings, I guess, going to market with 3 different things. So the first one we're calling Lab in a Box. So a Lab in a Box is a way for us to be able to get our partners or anybody into the DNA testing space. So testing analysis. So we will provide you your own branded kit, collection device, your own portal with your own branding, your own reports, and then the analysis of all those. So it's a healthcare professional, a clinic, or any ancillary business. We have businesses that are associated with cannabis, maybe not even plant touching, but they're also using this to be able to guide their patients specifically, or their customers specifically, to avoid those adverse events. And we can get into what the test actually does. So that's part one. The second thing we're doing is our interpretation services. So interpretation services, it's taking raw data from DNA, could be our lab DNA, or it could be Ancestry, it could be anybody else's, and provide your reports. So right now we have, in addition to our patent, by the way, one of the other things that happened is we got 2 more patents, which we're super, super proud of. We have our patent on the use of DNA to make recommendations associated with the endocannabinoid system, also the use of machine learning AI, and then we have our patents on our 8 formulations. So we received that The one our lawyers gave us a 10% chance of getting, but we were awarded that on January 2nd, which started out a good year. So anyway,
Awesome.
we have our
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. It's it's a pretty big accomplishment in the cannabis space, in the DNA space, and in this environment with precision wellness. So the reports that we have right now, we have our patented endocannabinoid test, the EndoDNA test. We also created a test with Dr. Jennifer Berman, who's one of the top female sexual health experts in the country. She was a host of Doctors. One of the things she was telling us is she's dealing with a lot of women with perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause challenges, and the side effects of those. So she was asking if there's a way that we can develop a test to help women be guided through that process to mitigate those adverse effects. So we created the menopause biotype test, and that is for women's health. We have an andra test, which is for male hormone health. We have a DNA test, which is nutrient and mineral deficiencies, and supplement tests, so looking at your personalized vitamins and nutrients and supplements. Then we have our mental health test, which it not only looks at treatment-resistant depression, but looks at binding affinity for different pathways on psychedelics as well. So ketamine, psilocybin, we have LSD, we have ibogaine, we have MDMA, etc. But it's not only for the psychedelic space, but we are adding those in as they become more acceptable and legalized as well. And we have a skin test that looks at predisposition to different skin conditions. And then we have a pharmacogenomics test, and we're developing other tests as well. And the third part of our offering is we're calling it iTreatment plan, so an interactive treatment plan. And one of the biggest things that we've learned through the process of doing genetic testing and analysis is, so what? And what I mean by so what, and I don't want to disparage any company out there, but I'll use 23andMe as an example. If you get your 23andMe results and it says that you're predisposed to alcohol flush or something like that, what do you do about that? What is the action that you take? And you're leaving opportunity on the table because I don't know what to do. So we created an interactive treatment plan with healthcare professionals, as well as using machine learning to start creating a protocol that is tailored specifically to the individual based on their genetic predispositions, that healthcare professionals can go in and edit and modify and start adding some of their own, products and solutions as well. So that bookends the experience. And once a person has a protocol, we collect data. And I want to make sure that people understand that the data is anonymized, it's de-identified. We're not interested in Joy or Brian's personal information. We're interested in 1,000 people who are similar to you that took this protocol and showed efficacy. Now the machine learning takes over and it can start making those predictive inferences. And the way that we get that feedback data is patient-reported outcome that integrates directly into the healthcare professional electronic medical record system, and also integration with wearable devices. So like your Oura Ring, your Fitbit, your BioStrap, anything like that. And that data goes in the cloud and gets analyzed. So that's what we've been doing. That's sort of the update in our business. And that's how we're proceeding in 2024.
That's awesome. So you've eliminated channel conflict, which is great. That's always a tough thing. I'm sure your resellers are very happy about that, and it'll certainly help with the distribution. So congratulations on that, and the patents. And you really, it's a great segue as you're talking about all of these things. For the use of cannabis as a wellness tool, right? Because a lot of and that's one of the things I want to clarify really for our listeners is a lot of what you're talking about is relating to health, right? So the medical wellness side of it. So the types of things that you're talking about, does it require a medical card, or can they simply go to the adult use side of this and be able to get the right product?
Yeah, I mean, to use a EndoDNA test, it does not require a medical card because we're not plant touching. The recommendations will come out of that? It depends on your state. So if you're living in a medical state, you would have to get a medical card to be compliant in order to get your, phytocannabinoid formulation, whatever is aligned more to you, or you can use a cannabis CBD formulation, maybe that has the right terpene profile and that is more aligned to you as well. So all those are available, and we're a global company. So when we provide recommendations and sell products, under white labels using our formulations, it all depends on what the country requirements are. So like countries like Brazil have a 0.2% THC threshold versus like Costa Rica has a 0% THC, UK 0.2, and other countries 0.3. So you have to adhere to what the rules and regulations there are. But I also wanted to point out that for me, it's a therapeutic product. So it doesn't matter if it's, quote unquote recreational. I don't really subscribe to that terminology. I like adult use.
Yes,
so to me, if you're over whatever age limit that you have to be in your state, and you want to consume cannabis for, well, I'm not going to have my glass of wine or my bourbon at the end of the night. I'm going to consume some cannabis. What is it for? Well, it's to help me relax. Okay. Is that medical? I don't know, but it's absolutely therapeutic and it's a wellness product. So that's really how I see it. And just to reemphasize our product, what we do, and why I feel it's a big differentiator, because people always talk about, oh, it's taking a DNA test to find the best weed for you. And it's not that. When we met with the FDA, they asked us, what is the purpose of your test? And we said to help people either avoid or mitigate a possible adverse event. And I feel this should be done across the board with every single medication and any wellness product. I want to know what's right for me because I want to avoid those potholes that are in my personal road. And if I'm using my DNA as sort of my personal GPS, it'll show me that these are the streets and these are the roads and these are the potholes. These are what I should avoid. So that's number one. In order to do that, you need to look at the genome. The second thing is, well, what about dosing? We talk about dosing all the time. Dosing is like start low, slow, and titrate up. Well, milligram per kilogram of weight, that never made any sense to me because you and I metabolize differently. It doesn't matter how big or how much you weigh or how tall. It's about what are metabolic function. There's a series of genes associated with that produce these enzymes and metabolize different cannabinoids. And there's a big difference between metabolizing a THC molecule that's isolated and metabolizing both THC and CBD and other cannabinoids. It even goes to a completely different enzymatic pathway. There's CYP2C9 is for THC, CYP3A4 is for CBD and THC together as a combined plant. So you have to actually understand what you're putting in your body and then how you're metabolizing for dosing. And the third part of that is drug interaction or even supplement interaction. What if I'm consuming prescription medication? What if I'm taking my antidepressant or SSRI medication? What if I'm consuming certain supplements? Is there an interaction? Well, there could be. If it's using the same enzymatic pathway, then one can be an inducer, one can be an inhibitor. But this is all knowledge that empowers the individual user to make better choices in their own personalized health and wellness. And at the end of the day, what our overarching goal is to reduce biological age. And how we're going to do that is get the genome, get the recommendation, use the protocol, and then measure epigenetic changes. So what has been switched on, what has been switched off. And my goal is to reduce my biological age by 7 years. And that takes a lot of lifestyle choices. The last thing I'm going to say on this specific topic, and I'll let you kind of ask more questions, but people talk to me about all the time about this genome. You're born this way. It's your genetics. It's in your genes. So what can you do? Well, maybe about 25% of your genes are sort of locked in. 75% of them, you can actually make changes to the expression of those genes through lifestyle changes. Lifestyle changes can be as simple as modifying the things that you put in your body, eating, your supplements, your minerals, your nutrients, removing heavy metals. all these different things. That is exactly what you should be focusing on in making those changes to your lifestyle.
Perfect.
I love that. Real quick, just wanted to bring up that we had a question come in from LinkedIn asking about how the test is administered. So
yeah, it's a saliva test, buccal swab. You would swab the inside of your cheek. You would put it back into the reagent that it comes in. It's one piece, swab, put it back in, register. If you do not register, we will not know that sample belongs to you, and you send it to the lab. It will take 2 to 4 weeks to get your results, or you can upload raw data from your 23andMe, your Ancestry.com, your family tree DNA, any other DNA test, and we'll translate that and provide you instantaneous results.
Absolutely. I mean, that's amazing, and I love this approach because, like you, I don't like that that term recreational, right? Because there's really, to me, nothing really that recreational should be about it. This is an herb, as we said, that was given here and put on this planet by God. That's my belief, and it is to be used for our benefit. So, to your point, is you had also made a point that talks about it's personal, right? It's personal to everybody else in your genetic structure. So you have to understand how it's going to interact with your body. And that's a very important thing that I want to drill into a little bit more. But before we do, I think it's also important to understand that once you figure out what you should be using, okay, it's important to make sure that the product you are using is a quality product. And we've been seeing a lot of things coming up in the news, and most recently, yesterday, there was a article about the toxic things that are coming up in some of these products, and people don't realize that marijuana plants are most likely contaminated because they're bioaccumulators. So they absorb things like heavy metals and pesticides in the soil, as well as a fungus that may exist. So it's really important, and what we're seeing, and this is one of the reasons Qredible really exists, is because we're seeing that state by state the testing standards are just they're not the same, and in some cases they're not really adequate. So the reason Qredible is very interested in what you're doing, Len, because I think it's amazing technology, amazing innovation, is because we've got to get it right as far as why use these products, because of for the wellness and medical purposes, but also then going on and this is why we like working with you, because Qredible is about then finding the safe products. What's your thought about, today not a lot of options exist to find those safe products, those safe manufacturers? What's your thinking on that?
Yeah, Brian, you hit the nail on the head. This is the biggest challenge that we have in the industry. First of all, you're so right on about the bioaccumulator. In Chernobyl, they planted hemp to be able to absorb all the radiation from the disaster in Chernobyl. So this plant does absorb, and if you have bad things in the soil or you use certain things, the plant is going to absorb that and you're going to ingest that. So it's extremely important. I'll try to unpack this in several different ways. Number one, I'm not a huge fan of the federal government getting involved in day-to-day operations of business. However, we need to have a standard, at least from the federal government, on how we test, because the testing in different states is different. The calibration of the equipment is different. There is no guidelines and standardization. There are practices on manufacturing. There's good manufacturing practice, CGMP, for how you're going to manufacture, but there is no standard on the source material that I'm manufacturing from. Garbage in, garbage out kind of thing.
Right.
So this is extremely important. Though either we all, which is going to be extremely difficult, band together and say we're going to raise our standards across the country in every state to whatever the standard is in maybe the California testing standard or Nevada testing standard, whatever the highest level is. Because at the end of the day, it's medicine we put in our bodies. It's a wellness product. We want to have the best quality. That's number one. Number two, testing for what? So terpenes, flavonoids, all these different components of the plant are really important. Now, I go to different dispensaries, I go to different states. They don't test for terpenes. So I am limited. Even if the results of my endoDNA test come back and say, you're more likely to do better with a balanced 1:1 ratio of cannabinoids to THC to CBD, and maybe your secret sauce is linalool and beta caryophyllene as your primary and secondary terpene profile. Wonderful. Now I got my secret sauce. I'm going to go to a dispensary, or I'm going to integrate through an API with a menu. But if you're not testing for those terpenes, you're only testing cannabinoids, I'm only getting half the information that's important to me. So we, as an industry, whether we do it through regulation or we do it through collaboration, we have to make sure that everybody's testing for everything in the plant. So number one is safety. In the same way the FDA does clinical trials, you want to make sure before it's efficacious, you want to make sure it's safe. Then you want to make sure it's efficacious, and then you want to scale. And the same way you do this in phases in clinical trials. So we, as an industry, need to do better. I have so many people that contact us and say they took the endoDNA test, they took it from one of our partners, they understand what is right for them, but they can't find the product. They're going into one of the MSO dispensaries and they're having conversations, and the people working there, the bud tenders, don't know. It's not tested for terpenes. I'll give you my personal experience. I was in a dispensary in Denver. I'm in Los Angeles. I went to Denver, and I like that they have jars. I mean, I enjoy, we don't have that in California where you can actually smell. And I was asking the people working there, do you have test results of these products? Like, yeah, I mean, we have, and it showed like heavy metals and no terpene testing. And I was like, well, what is it in this? Do you know? And they're like, no. I said, would you like me to tell you? And then you can go and test me. Like, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to smell it. I don't get a chance to do that in California. So I'm smelling it. I'm like, you smell that it smells citrusy, right? So that's limonene. You have this lavender smell. That's linalool. And then if you have this kind of clove, peppery kind of smell, beta caryophyllene. Diesely skunky. Well, that's myrcene. And if you understand, at least do that. But you're working in a dispensary, you're not even trained to do that. Once again, we're relying on people that are, called bud tenders, and nothing against them. I used to have dispensaries, and I believe well-trained bud tenders are your first step on getting the right product. But if you're doing a wellness or a product that's therapeutic, you need to have proper training, and you need to have the resources available for you to make those suggestions to people that actually need this as a therapeutic product. So as an industry, we actually need to get better with testing. We need to get better for testing for safety. We need to get better for testing and efficacy. And then we need to have the people in place that can actually point you to the right direction of finding the right, formulation for you.
Absolutely. And you're sort of like, I'm going to call you the cannabis sommelier. Because it's like when I go to the wine store, I want to talk to the sommelier who works there. I know who he is. I seek him out all the time because I'm asking a lot of questions. He understands my taste. But this is a little bit different because here we're talking about wellness. Here we're talking about medical. And I think that there's three main pillars that I'm sensing. Yours is a critical one. Right. What is it that my body needs in order to get the kind of results that I want from a wellness perspective? Like without that, you're flying blind. So that is a key component. The second thing is making sure that you're having a full cannabinoid testing and terpene profile. So you're testing for all these things, and you have those things that can be identified and targeted within the product. And then the third thing is that you have the safety standard testing where you're testing for mycotoxins, all the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, the things that, can be harmful. Because what we're seeing starting to come out in the news now, quite frankly, is just, it's going to give the industry a black eye, but it's a reality. There was a New York Post story that came out yesterday. I think we posted it today on LinkedIn, and it's not to panic people, but there's this assumption that if it's illegal, it's safe. So if you're buying legal cannabis, it's safe. But that is not the case, because we see contamination is going to quickly become an issue of concern as we're seeing high levels of heavy metals being tested from cannabis users that are coming up in their blood, blood and urine, and we're starting to see that some of these things are being linked to higher risk of fungal infections and other types of things, and that's not because the plant is bad. It's because there might be an issue with where it was grown, how it was grown, how it was created, what was used on those products. And to your point, Len, without a federal standard, right? Without a federal standard, the USDA can't even get involved and tell you what pesticides to use and what not to use and give you warnings because it's not federally legal. So these are the things that we've got to fix. And I see those three pillars as important. Yours being a very important one. Understand your body, understand your DNA, understand how this product's going to work for you or should work for you. Getting and being able to match that, which I totally agree to you. You go into a dispensary and they can't even, I'm not even going to go there. It's a whole nother frustration that I have, but they're not properly educated, and they should be educated. They should be certified, but they need the product, the data on the product, which means the terpene profile, the cannabinoid profile. And some of these products, when you look at the COAs, they're not getting those full profiles. And then lastly, how is this company rated for safety standards? Are they using GMP standards? Are they testing? What are they testing for, regardless of what the state tells them they have to test for? And is there a sampling process that goes in to sort of check that testing? And Qredible is actively working on, that back end piece, and also working with partners in the middle. And of course, we love what you're doing, so we want to really partner and promote you as well, and those types of things. So I think that you're hitting on a lot of key important topics. And what do you see coming up as far as some of the new medical sort of discoveries that are interesting?
Yeah, and and thank you for saying all that. And wouldn't it be like we have these marks on different things that we buy? We have a USDA label. We have all. Wouldn't it be good if I can go into a dispensary, or however cannabis is going to be distributed in the future? It could be out of pharmacies, but there's a check mark on there that I actually know that this is a product that went through rigorous testing and it stands above beyond anything else. I mean, that's the future of where I think we all want to move towards. And the Qredible
check mark that has a Q too.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. That Q check mark that says this is the product that
quality seal
is right for you. That's the quality seal.
Absolutely.
Medical wise, we're involved in right now 9 clinical trials. So there's a phase 2 clinical trial at Harvard that we are doing it, and that clinical trial is focused on anxiety and how cannabis CBD can help with anxiety. So that's one. We have supposedly we started with 3 clinical trials in Wayne State, but now we just expanded to 5 clinical trials. The first clinical trial in Wayne State, which is they got a state funding as well as NIH funding grant for the first one is adolescence, how cannabinoids can affect the adolescent brain, and which is really interesting. And we're genotyping everybody, and then we'll cluster analyze. Then the other studies have to do with veterans. So it's all about how certain cannabinoids affect veterans for different types of conditions like PTSD, even ADHD and other kind of markers. And we're looking at those predispositions for those and how cannabinoids phytocannabinoids can help our veterans as well. Then we are moving to 3 studies in CHUM in Montreal. And those studies are really interesting. One of them is specifically interesting because it has to do with method of consumption. So taking the same exact formulation, let's say it's one of our formulations that supports sleep, and using that formulation in 3 different types of delivery methods. So the first one would be a combustible, through a vaporizer. You can measure how much you're consuming. The other one would be a tincture, so a sublingual delivery, bypassing first pass. And the third one would be first pass delivery, which is a soft gel or some sort of ingestible that you can consume, measure exactly how much. And we're going to see how metabolic function plays a role, how your genetics play a role, and what the method of consumption by consuming the same exact formulation, how that can show up in efficacy. So those are the studies I'm really, really excited about. It's not like, going to be done tomorrow. They're going to be taking a while. But one of my biggest pet peeves is this whole notion of we don't have enough research. Well, research has been blocked for many years. And just because you're putting a synthetic, cannabinoid derivative into a rat, it doesn't mean that it's going to act the same way in humans. So when we started, I remember having this conversation with my partner back in 2017, and I said, what's our goal? And we were talking about it. And it's really to provide the world's largest observational study. Because at the end of the day, clinical trials, great. They take a long time and they're very, very important. That's how we get drugs past the FDA. But if we're all three of us are, doing the same exact thing as human beings, but with controls, using the same standards as a clinical trial would, well, then we get really good information that we can then, under an IRB, Institutional Review Board, we can publish that and expand on that, because that way we have real human interaction in a controlled way to get us feedback on the efficacy and the safety of certain products and how that works for individuals. So those are the things I'm really, really excited about moving forward with in the scientific in the medical space.
And that's great to hear, because all of those things that you're working are going to help to underscore the potential of cannabis therapeutics and really mitigating harm and enhancing wellness, enhancing patient well-being, and quite frankly, and even replacing various pharmaceuticals that have significant side effects. So I think that there's so much potential here. This is a very nascent industry, but Len, I want to thank you on behalf of the industry for leading the way. You're a pioneer, and those are important. Those kinds of people and those kind of companies are very important in doing the kind of work that you're doing to advance this industry. So we're big fans. We continue to be big fans, and more coming up on future broadcasts of Qredible when we're talking about that middle section of finding the terpenes. So we'll be promoting that and talking about that, and then getting more about what Qredible's working on, talking about getting to that safety standard and that queue. So Len, thanks for joining us. I assume that people can go to your website and find your channel partners, your resellers, and find a way to utilize these tests.
Yeah, absolutely. Go to endodna.com. I'm all over social and everything. Len May DNA on Instagram, Len May, LenMay. So reach out. I'm pretty responsive. And Brian, Joy, I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me on again. I love what you guys are doing. We need to all work together to lift this industry out of the dark ages. And that's the only way to do that, is support each other. It's a very, very small industry. We're just starting. This is not a mature industry. So we all have to support each other and lift each other up, because that's the way we're going to, move this industry forward.
Amen. Thanks so much, Len.
Love it.
Thank you.